Okay, Karen, we're live now.
Okay, all set.
Yes.
Call to order for tonight's meeting. Kathleen Allen.
Here.
Brian Chetney.
Here.
Tom Chapa.
Here.
Heather Del Conte.
Here.
Brandon Legault.
Here.
Linda Serino.
Here.
Samuel Tripp.
Here.
And Ruma Kawaja. At this time, we'll move to the agenda of the board meeting. The first agenda item is Board of Education. The first item is the 2020-21 Board of Education meeting dates and the ballot count time extension resolution. This resolution I have put on the agenda just in case on next Tuesday, if we do get all 17,000 ballots back, we may not be able to count them all in one night. So we are asking the board to let us start again at 8 o'clock in the morning if everyone starts to get tired and miscount and that type of thing. We don't want that to happen. So if I could have a motion, please.
I'll make a motion.
Second,
I'll second.
Tom?
Yep.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed. Next on the agenda is the superintendent's report with Dr. Gui.
Good evening, everybody.
Aye, Dean.
I apologize for my casual attire, but I was hoping to get home tonight to change and do this meeting virtually from my home, but that never happened. So I look a little casual, but you'll have to bear with me. Two items in the superintendent's report this evening that are of some interest to the community, and we thought that we would address them this evening. The first, I'd like to make just a simple statement, and I would also like to indicate that tonight at the board table, we have in-district counsel, Mr. Thomas Buckle, with us this evening, if he's able to answer any questions as we move through not only the superintendent's report, but also the budget presentation, any questions that might come up from the community as well. The first thing I'd like to just brush over just briefly is that there's been some significant social media chatter about the capital project. And I just wanted to say that the Oswego City School District has certainly, like most districts, been under some extenuating circumstances related to confronting a once-in-a-lifetime financial crisis. However, the Oswego City School District has always been very pro-union. We're very pro-local workers, and we have always supported the local trades. We will continue to have that philosophy moving forward, including in our current capital project. Board members, any questions or comments?
Nope.
Second is graduation. There's been some, this has been challenging this year, and certainly it's not any more challenging for Oswego than it has been for any school district across our country, and certainly in Oswego and Onondaga County. I've invited Tammy Palmatesso to join us tonight for the superintendent's report. Tammy is the senior class advisor for the Oswego High School, and she's been working with senior class officers as well as an expanded committee to gather some insight and work around planning a unique graduation in these uncertain times. My only challenge to Tammy and Mr. Wallace at the time was to work with students to generate a plan for a graduation that was dignified and reflected what students want. Because we all know that adults have opinions about what graduation should look like, the types of things that we might do or should do. But I was really interested in giving them something that was memorable to them. And so that was the charge to Tammy and her group. I have reported out to it to the board previously. I did pop into one planning meeting with Tammy and some students one evening. And then I stepped back because that typically is not the work of the superintendent. But I did have an interest in having it be something that was memorable for kids. So now I guess I'll turn it over to Tammy. And maybe Tammy, you can just give us a little background on what work you've been doing, and then the board members can ask you any questions that you might have.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yep. Interrupt me at any time if you have any questions with anything that I say. So this, of course, like he says, has been very challenging. Normally, I get out my graduation binder and it's pretty straightforward as to what we do and how we proceed, um, and it's not too different. So this year, once we found out that school was definitely going to be canceled for the rest of the year in person, I really got going with my officers they've done a great job. We've brainstormed a lot. They've branched out. I've branched out. We've really been talking to people, trying to get ideas. They've done their homework. They've researched things online that other districts are doing. We're lucky being a northern school because our graduation is later than a lot of the southern schools, so we can get ideas through that means. YouTube has a lot of great ideas out there. So what we did was we really brainstormed, what do the kids want, and still that it's safe and reliable, because that was a big part of it. There's a lot of things that kids would like to see that we just can't do at this time. We can't plan for it at this time. So what I did was I also, besides just working with the class officers and having them branch out, I sent an email to a bunch of seniors, and there were some that couldn't attend the meeting, but there were many that did. And I went through, and Dr. Gui was on for a little while, then he stepped off, and I think it was great because then the kids really opened up and started talking some more. I asked them personally, what would you like to see? What are some ideas that you might have? And we talked, and I was on that call for a long time with those kids, and I thought it was great that they really truly were invested in coming up with a great plan, trying to help. And I, of course, told them, just because it's something that was said doesn't mean it's something that we can do, but I'm going to definitely try. So I spoke with Dr. Gui after that, and he loved the ideas that the kids had. They really, things that were important to them, a few key things, keeping graduation the same date that it was supposed to be. They said that's been in their minds, that it's going to be June 27th. They really wanted it that day. We talked about location. Normally we do graduation down at SUNY Oswego. It's a nice big open area. We couldn't do SUNY Oswego this year. So we talked about location. They didn't like the idea of the high school just because of all the renovations that are going on there, busy streets around there. They love the idea of the middle school. So it's quiet. It's a nice backdrop setting of woods and things like that. And as far as getting in and out of the middle school with vehicles, we figure that's a great place as well. And the thing that was extremely important to them was having their name called and walking across a stage. So we really want to give that to the kids. Their name called, walking across the stage, that's their big moment that they want. So here's the plan that we've thought about to put in place. The order of the kids being called would be very similar to what it's been in years past: valedictorian, salutatorian, class officers, NHS officers, and then alphabetically. And we'd break it up into 2 different sessions. Part of the reason being we don't know what the day is going to look like. If it's a 90-degree day, we really just have to we have almost 260 graduating seniors, so we just wanted there to be a little pause. We'd be able to regroup. If it was a really hot day, we'd take a little break and we wouldn't be out in the elements. Or if it was a not so nice day, same type thing. So we would have kids get a number. There would be 1 vehicle per student, and they would all get a number. They have to display it in their vehicle. So about 130 kids would be the first group, starting at 9 a.m. And we would also tell them which parking lot and MS to park in. And we would have workers there. We're also going to look for help from like Lori Berger and her staff. And they're going to have the kids park in certain spots so that it'll be easy to line these kids up with their numbers. And then they will proceed around OMS, and where the portables were, because they're down now, that will be a nice stage set up by our theater crew. We're going to have a podium so that counselors can call names. Mr. Wallace, Dr. Gui will be on stage. Mr. Wallace will put down on a table the graduation diploma cover. He'll have gloves on. He can set that down on a table. The kid will pull up around in their one vehicle per family. They would have to be in the passenger side so that they can get out easy enough. And they can stand. Their name will be called. They will head up. They will proceed. They will get their diploma cover. They can pause for a picture. We're going to have photographers there. And then they can move their tassel and then proceed down, get back in the car. And a station that we will have is where they can pick up their actual diploma. We do this every year at graduation so that on stage they're not actually receiving their diploma in case things get mixed up a little bit and then you're trying to track down kids that have wrong diplomas, so they get the diploma cover. There will also be another photographer when they're walking down, so it's an action shot as well. These pictures will be available to all families. It's going to be a digital download and they get that. They do not have to pay for that. And the second one would start at 1 o'clock. Any questions? I'm sure there's some things I didn't say in there, but I'm just wondering who has questions about things. One more thing that I can say too. Today I sent out a Google form with anybody needing any transportation assistance. So our thoughts on this, I explained it very well to the kids, either yes or no, if you need transportation assistance. If we're talking about 2 families, we're going to proceed from there. If we're talking about 20 families, then we're going to proceed from there. So we don't actually know exactly what's going to happen as far as transportation assistance, because we don't want it to be, this student, they had to have transportation assistance. We want it to be so nobody would know, basically, if that makes sense. Right now, there's been 77 responses to the form, and there's only been 1 needing transportation assistance. So I'm thinking we can get a volunteer or something like that to give that kid transportation assistance and their family.
So I have a few questions. First
Sure.
of all, I want to thank you, Tammy.
Yeah.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, I can.
I want to thank you so much for all the work you've done, and the senior class officers obviously have put in a lot of time as well. And this is a very challenging thing with there's a lot of opinions and obviously a lot of heartfelt desires from a lot of people. I have been fielding a lot of emails and the phone calls from the folks who really are resource challenged and don't have vehicles. I saw your Jupiter grade survey come in today.
Yes.
But I do know that there are some seniors who aren't getting their, like they're not participating in online. They're getting packets, so they must have some kind of issue with their computer. Is there a way to reach out to those folks?
Sure. Yep. I can get the list of seniors that are getting it that way, and we definitely can. I know that when I sent the Google form for cap and gown measurements, not all of the kids submitted back, but there were many that gave me alternate email addresses, not just their Jupiter email addresses. So what I did this morning, was I sent it through Jupiter Ed, and I also sent out a big mass email. Everything okay? I sent out a big mass email to other email addresses that I had. And then I will contact Kirk has been dealing with a lot of the take-home folder for the kids, so I'll contact him to find out the seniors that have that.
And I guess I'm also, too, if people are coming in cars, why, I'm not understanding why we don't do more like a parade, like socially distanced parade, something like that, where there's a little more,
They will go around.
Right, so the cars go around. I'm saying we could kind of remove the whole transportation issue if it was more like a walking parade that's very socially distanced. Is that something that was explored or asked about?
Yes, we had thought about that. Are you talking about just with the students or students and family members?
I would imagine that instead of driving around in a car, you're a unit, right? obviously you don't have to be protected from your own family unit, and you would just socially distance from the next family unit down the, behind you. If I'm 9, number 10 is, 15 feet behind me.
Yeah, we had talked about that, and we were just concerned with maybe family members that can't walk at a reasonable pace, and it would hold things up, and that way the vehicle is pushing things along. And if it's not a nice day, then we wouldn't want grandma slipping or, something like that.
Okay. I know that the kids without vehicles are very concerned about feeling objectified, and feeling very uncomfortable. They've also been hearing that, some families are renting limos or going to go all out and decorate their cars and those kind of things. So I'm wondering if we do end up doing this plan, if we can encourage folks to not rent limos and not, go crazy.
Are you saying to, and I can email that out there, what if they come in a limo? What are we?
So I don't know.
We can.
Honestly, our whole country is in a riot right now because there is a lack of understanding of different cultures. And I think in our community, sometimes we just need to be sensitive to people who come from different places and have different needs. And, we have a population that is 40% free and reduced lunch. And I think, I'm not sure what the composition of the committee was, but unless it was 40% of folks who have, come from that situation, I'm not sure that their needs are going to be represented. And I just want to make sure they are, because we have to get that right. That's all.
Yeah.
I think that we can definitely provide guidance. There's going to be a comprehensive pack. One thing that Tammy hasn't talked about and that I should probably reference is that once a final plan for graduation is submitted, I've been directed by Chris Todd, the district superintendent for City BOCES, and all of us, all 9 component superintendents, that we must submit our plan to the chairman of the Oswego County Legislature for his review or approval, or forward to the Department of Health or the state. In fact, we've even gotten some intel that maybe he would forward it to the state. A few districts have forwarded their graduation plans. We have not yet, because I wanted to have this conversation with the board first, but we have to articulate exactly what it is we're doing. Make clear that we're not having a large group gathering, which would not be approved until phase 4, and also that we're doing all the social distancing requirements. So that has to happen in order for us to get the appropriate approvals. To go back to Heather's suggestion about more of a walk-up procession, perhaps the plan that Tammy's been working with the students could be altered somewhat so that the parent and the student leave their car before the designated mark that we talked about before. Maybe it's just around the corner of the middle school, and they are able to walk with one parent to the ramp, and then the parent can move to the photo area, and then the car pulls up. So the student's not climbing in and out of the car at the ramp. Maybe they could walk around that roadway, down up the ramp to the platform, and at that time their car with a separate driver than the parent would pull up to the second exit ramp. Just a thought. It might appear more like a graduation procession, but still have the same social distancing effect.
Yeah, we had talked about letting one person out of the vehicle, so it was kind of, should we or shouldn't we? And it was back and forth, and I'm open for either one.
Okay.
We just can't have it has to keep flowing, and because you could get caught up in a big time crunch with 260 kids.
Tammy, what do you anticipate the time is? I know we talked at one point about having to do this over 2 days because it could take 9-10 hours. Tammy's been working on the specifics of how long it would really take in order to have a name called, go up, retrieve the diploma, move to the photo X, and then leave the stage. You talk about a 9 and a 1 p.m. session. When will we be done?
Well, they're both about the same amount of time, so I'm hoping that the 9 o'clock session is done by 12 o'clock.
Okay.
If we need to adjust it, maybe we could say 9 and 2 to give us more of a break. I just thought try to keep, but the hard thing is trying to figure out how long it's going to take for the next set of vehicles to come in
Mhm.
and park, because there's multiple parking lots. I've been down there counting parking spaces and all that kind of stuff. It's hard to judge how long will that take. If they come in off of Fifth Street, Marks Fitzgibbons, the only exit is Marks Fitzgibbons to Murray Street. You know, we need to have a one-way traffic flow for people coming in and out. So people can be coming in while people are going out, but the workers will need a break. They will need a little time. So I'm hoping that it'll go from about 9 to 12 and then 1 to, you know,
4.
4.
Okay.
Yeah. When I've watched some YouTube videos on these drive-up ceremonies, one in particular that I found to be very helpful in planning what we're thinking is they had 143 students and it took an hour and 40 minutes. And those kids pulled right up, got out of their vehicle. Their name was called as they were getting out of the vehicle. I want more of a pause. Their name was being called as they got out of the vehicle. They walked right up to a building and walked right back to their car. They weren't going across the stage. I don't think that moving across the stage is going to add that much time. It is going to add a little bit. I would like for there to be a little pause. And if the kids get out of the car before the stage and we line kids up 6 feet apart, I'm okay with that. That is fine with me. You know, coming around the corner of the middle school is where the kid can get out of the vehicle and kind of line up. I've had plenty of people say they want to help and volunteer, so we'll have plenty of manpower to help. And then they would kind of walk up to the stage as their vehicle is pulling up as well. And like Dr. Gui said, the person driving, family member or a friend or whatever, but that person has to stay in the vehicle. We need it moving. If we decide that people can get out, which this one that took an hour and 40 minutes for 143 people, only the graduate got out. Everybody else was just at the windows taking pictures and videos and things like that. And I've told the kids that their parents and family members in that vehicle are going to be closer to them graduating this year than ever before, because normally you're back behind. You know, if anybody's been out to the college for graduation, you have to be back. So they're going to be right up close with their graduates. So that's kind of special this year. And we're offering the picture, the video is going to be live streamed. So while the graduation is going on, it will be live streamed and it'll be available afterwards. So grandma and grandpa don't have to make a trip from Florida. You know, we want to try to keep people in place if we can.
Tammy, can you talk briefly about the other part of graduation relative to the typical speeches and addresses by Heather, for example, or me or Pat, the
Yep.
valedictorian? How will that be captured?
Okay, so we're planning on doing that ahead of time. I've been speaking with Matt Bach, and I know he's been talking to Jamie. We want to record the speeches ahead of time. So for the live stream, they're going to start, let's say, 15 or 20 minutes before the live stream would start. They would broadcast that, and then the live stream picks up. So we'll have it pre-recorded. It's kind of nice. You can relax, and if you screw up a little, you can re-record it. But Heather will get in contact with you and talk to Dr. Gui and Mr. Wallace and things like that as to when we'll set up a time to record those.
Can I just share
yeah.
one thing?
Sure.
Tammy and I did talk about the concern that you expressed, Heather. We are reaching out to our school social workers
Yes.
and our McKinney-Vento liaison. So by the end of this week, we had said we would have the survey go live for a few days, look at what the responses we got, and then between the counselors, the social workers, and the administrative team, we know those pockets of kids that we might need to make a personal phone call to ensure that their responses are recorded so that we know exactly how many kiddos we're talking about might need some assistance. And we brainstorm a few options depending on, are we talking about 4 kids? Are we talking about 30 kids? So we definitely want to make sure that it's completely equitable. and that everybody gets the same wonderful, moving experience that our graduation ceremony usually is.
Yes, and with the Google form that I put out to find out who needs transportation help, yes or no, and then if they did, they had to leave a number and all that kind of stuff. But I also required their names, so I can compare the actual graduating list to that list, so that we could go through and make phone calls or anything else that needs to be.
I think the only thing that I would add is that we've had some pretty significant conversations at the county chiefs meetings. And as you know, Oswego County and Onondaga County are working pretty closely now because we're under some shared direction by Chris Todd at this time. All the superintendents have been given a pretty strong directive to stay away from large social gathering graduation ceremonies, despite the fact that we all would love to do that. We've also been advised not to stall and wait too long for an opportunity for that to be okay, because currently under the executive order, large gatherings would only be permissible in phase 4. I did survey the other 9 component school districts this morning although I had a sense of what everyone was doing. The only district that didn't respond as of late this afternoon was Mexico, and all superintendents indicated that they were doing a similar outdoor drive up, student get out, cross the stage, name called type of celebration. A few districts have submitted their plans to Jim Weatherup already, but most plan to do it this week. I'd love to take a wait and see approach, but I'm concerned with our graduating seniors that are going off to college. They start to think about that in the 1st of August, and most districts are planning on having their graduations a combination of virtual recorded, like we are doing, and some type of drive up and then cross the stage ceremony similar to what we are planning.
We had talked about people that are going into the military as well. Some of them
Oh, yeah.
shortly after June 27th, because that's how it's been planned. Because
Yeah.
we toyed around with the idea of having a later date. The college would not let us plan it out there, so that didn't even matter. So it would have just been a later date to plan something probably similar to what we're doing right now. So it's been very interesting trying to come up with things, and of course everybody has opinions, and what's best for everybody.
Yeah.
But,
I certainly share Heather's feeling.
yeah.
It's no secret
yes.
in the community or with this board or previous boards that what drives me is equality of opportunity and making sure that our students are treated equally and have the same opportunity for the same experience. So I echo that, and whatever we need to do in order to make sure that it's dignified and the opportunity exists for every child in our district.
Yes. Yeah.
That's the goal.
Make sure everybody's comfortable and enjoying their graduation ceremony. It's about that.
Candy, what will be the expectation for the board members?
What would be the what?
The expectation.
For the board member.
Typically, we would have any board member on the stage that would like to be. We also, under my superintendency, started inviting all principals because this is a K-12 celebration.
Yes.
We have we have valedictorian, salutatorian on the stage. I think we'll have to roll back that participation. I'm not sure that Heather and Kathleen will get off the hook, but I think it will have to be a smaller cohort. However, we have some board members who have graduating seniors, and those board members, I'm sure, would like to participate in the delivery of the diploma for their child, and we should make that work.
Yes. Yeah, I'm open to anything like that. Just of course, I'd want to make sure it's what we can do.
As you get closer, would we as board members get some clarification of what the final decision is?
Yes, as soon as Tammy's proposal is prepared, she sent a draft today. I haven't seen it yet. As soon as her proposal is submitted to me and it's acceptable to me, when I send it into the county, I'll send it to the board.
Good.
Can you explain why the county? What authority do they have to move outside of our health department? I don't understand that.
I don't know, but I'll just tell you what's been shared with us as the chiefs. At a Zoom meeting with the county superintendents a few weeks ago, there were some questions because we were hearing from Onondaga County that those superintendents were submitting plans to either the county executive or the legislature. So we asked Chris to follow up on that for us, because there really hasn't been a lot of directive from the governor in any executive order about an expectation for that. So Chris Todd reached out to Phil Church. Phil Church responded to Chris that our plan should be submitted to the chairman of the legislature. So that's how that came. So that was communicated to the superintendents by Chris Todd, and that guidance came from Phil Church to Chris Todd. So
Interesting.
that's what some superintendents have already submitted their proposals to Jim Weatherup. I don't know what the connection is, but I believe that at some point it ends up with the health department. You would probably know better than I, Heather.
I'm royally confused. I don't understand the flow of authority, but we'll just go with yes.
Right. Anyone else?
Thank you, Tammy, for coming tonight.
Tammy, thank you. I think it helped a lot rather than me trying to paraphrase your work.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, no problem.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tammy.
Any other items for the superintendent's report?
I'm good until we get to the budget hearing.
Okay. Next is the consent agenda, minutes of the budget workshop of May 18th, 2020, minutes of the regular board meeting of May 19th, 2020, and the special education report for June 1st, 2020. Could I have a motion?
Move it.
Second?
Second.
Tom, thank you. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Next on the agenda is personnel with Dr. Sweeney.
Hello. We have two retirement recommendations this evening. I'll read the general retirement resolution and then information about both of our retirees. Upon the presentation and recommendation of Dr. Bui, we ask that the Board of Education accept the following retirements. Whereas the following individuals were employed continuously by the Oswego City School District, and whereas they admirably served the students and staff of the Oswego City School District with their full commitment to their responsibilities, and worked in partnership with their fellow employees, and with their full service and dedication to the best interest of all the students of the Oswego City School District. Now therefore be it resolved that the Oswego City School District hereby recognizes that their service was an asset to the students and staff of our district, and we express gratitude and sincere appreciation for their years of service. The first is Suzanne Gosselin here at the Ed Center. She has been employed with us since September 9th, 1998, and will retire on June 30th, 2020, and she works as a typist. And the second is Michael Johnson, who is a senior maintenance worker for the school district, and he's been with us since December 7th, 1983, and will retire on July 18th, 2020.
Could I have a motion, please?
Move them.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Number 3, professional staff recommendation is a group of resignations. Michelle Bruno, living environment teacher at the high school. Sarah Pritchard Mitchell, special education teacher at Minetto. And Jessica Peters, special education teacher split between Riley and KPS. And I have one other professional recommendation. 4 is a leave of absence for Rebecca Ware, who is a teaching assistant at Riley from 9/1 until December 9th.
Motion?
Move it.
Move them.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
5 is a support staff recommendation for a probationary appointment, Sarah Pike, custodian at Minetto. And 6 is a permanent appointment for Mary Searer, typist at the high school. She's completed her probationary period.
Motion,
Move them.
second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next will be finance with Nancy Squires.
Number 1 is a donation from Exelon for $217.50 to Fitchie Park School. And that is from their employee giving campaign payroll deduction program. Do you just want me to keep going?
Please.
Okay. 2 is a contract with Glad Security. This is for phase 2 of the capital project for $26,244, and that is for access control equipment and software. 3 is a contract with MCK, also for phase 2 of the capital project for $8,852.29, and that is for additional abatement that they found at the school.
Sorry.
4 is a contract with Anderson Center for Autism for the 2020-2021 school year. And number 5 is our resolutions 5 and 6 are resolutions to fund reserves for any surplus that we have at the end of the year. 1 is to fund our unemployment reserve for up to $2 million. And the other is to fund our workers' comp reserve for a maximum of up to $2 million from our unappropriated fund balance.
Motion,
I'll make the motion.
second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Next, we would move to items from the board. Would anybody have an item tonight?
I do. I want to, Rhonda and her team, she went around to all the senior athletes today. I met and she hit most of them and gave them a really nice gift, and had the Buck mascot with her, with a very special person inside, and it was just a really special surprise for our senior athletes, and it took a lot of logistical work, I think, on her part, and just really appreciated. So I wanted to say thank you to her.
Any other items? At this time, would the board need to move to executive session?
Yes. But
What?
we do it-
Can we
Yeah.
do the budget hearing first?
let's
Yep.
do it after.
Yep, and then I can bring you back to a regular meeting,
Yeah, I think that's better.
okay? At this time, could I have a motion for adjournment from the regular meeting?
Make a motion.
Second,
I'll second it.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next, we'll move to the public hearing. If I could do a call to order. Kathleen Allen,
Here.
Brian Chetney,
He's muted, but he's saying here. There.
okay, Tom Chapa,
Here.
Heather Del Conte,
Here.
Brandon Legault,
Here.
Linda Serino,
Here.
Samuel Tripp.
Here.
Next, for the public hearing, since we have done the call to order, I will give it to Dr. Gui for his presentation. Oh, if I could also mention, if anybody would like to submit questions for the public hearing, they could go to our district website, the main page. There is a link there for them to give me their address, their name, their address and phone number, and a question. And they can do that at any time now. Dr. Gui?
Okay, I think we're good now. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, because we're doing a screen share, so I don't see you now. I'm looking at the PowerPoint as well. So due to COVID-19, this was obviously a highly unusual budget year for us. Typically, I would have presented a budget in the three component parts: administrative, capital, and program. But because of funding delays, we created the complete budget as soon as our funding was clear, and that's the budget that's been presented over the last month or more. Typically, I would have done 15 to 20 school and community-based presentations during the budget process, and we were unable to do those. So as of today, the governor has still not come out with any numbers relating to the looming deficit for the state, which is approximately $61 billion. We balanced our budget. And as you know, because we presented several times now, the district initially had a budget gap of $1.6 million. To offset the gap, I presented a budget to the board for their adoption, which made $764,796 in reductions, and also applied budget surplus in the amount of $837,811 to close that gap and to balance our budget. So the board adopted a balanced budget of $88,505,455 on May 19th. What's the tax impact of this estimated budget? So there's been a lot of communication and chatter on social media about the budget, and I want to take the opportunity tonight to kind of offset and educate a little bit clearer some of the important elements of the budget. The estimated tax impact on a $100,000 home is $1,084.02, which is actually a reduction from the current year's budget of $1,405.04. So the estimated savings would be $321.02 on a $100,000 home. So the estimated average tax rate per thousand in the 1920 current operating budget, as it relates to or compared to the 2021, our current is $20.19, and the proposed 2021 budget is $16.80 per thousand. The next slide you're familiar with. This shows a side-by-side comparison of the 1920 operational budget and the adopted budget for 2021. Our current operational budget is $86,034,274, and the adopted budget by the board is $88,505,455, or an increase of $2,471,181, or a 2.91% increase. The next three slides, which I won't read line by line, but our viewers have seen this presentation a few times now. The next few slides generate a list of the reductions that were made in order to reduce the budget to where we got to a point where we could adopt the budget with the application of some reserved funds. And we've used a variety of reductions, from superintendent supplies to summer workers to our security dog that we were so excited about, to the $10,000 applied to the Summer Writing Institute sponsored by the OCSD at SUNY Oswego. We made some reductions in professional development, equipment in the schools, which is $205,000, which the board and our viewers understand was part of our furniture replacement practice. Additionally, some of the budget reductions, as I referenced previously, were easier than others because some of these reductions related to COVID-19 are programs or things that would not happen anyways naturally. For example, summer driver's ed, middle school, summer school, summer workers, summer transportation and gas, things like that. Now there's actually no summer school in 7 through 12. So the budget gap resolution, or how this boils down, we had an original gap of $1,602,607. We applied budget reductions in the amount of $764,796, and we applied $837 and $811 from budget surplus in order to create a balanced budget. There's some questions on social media about what happens if this budget fails. Well, under New York State education law, there are 3 options for school districts if their budget fails. The first is that the district can adopt a contingency budget without going back to the voters. The second is the district can present the original or revised budget for a revote. And the third would be that the district could adopt a contingency budget and then present individual propositions to voters to vote on particular services that would require voter approval that we thought were essential. Options 2 or 3 under our current situation would be impossible because of the regulatory time constraints related to coming forward, presenting an amended budget for a revote would not be possible before the required deadline. So if our budget fails, the district must adopt a contingency budget. The next slide is a slide that I wanted to add this evening and offer some clarification, in fact, an apology to our voters. This year, City BOCE's Public Relations Department prepared and mailed all budget information, and they made an error in column 2 on this particular page of our budget newsletter. The first column illustrates the budget that was adopted for the 1920 school year of $86,034,274. And the second corrected column, which was corrected as soon as we noticed it on our district website, is the proposed budget or the adopted budget for the 2021 school year of $88,505,455. The next line I'll just talk about briefly is the increase decrease for the 2021 school year. The increase of our budget that we're putting out to voters is $2,471,181. Two additional slides that I added very late this afternoon are about the propositions. In addition to asking the community to vote on the operational budget of the Oswego City School District, there will be propositions. The first one is asking the voters to authorize the purchase of 2 passenger sport utility vehicles at $37,000 each and 1 full-size wheelchair bus at $146,000 for a cost not to exceed $220,000, and also to authorize the bonding for the above purchases. The next proposition would be to establish a 2020 capital reserve fund of up to $10 million and to transfer $75,042 from our existing capital reserve to that new reserve. The next slide talks about voting, and there's been some confusion, and we're all confused about voting. The executive order called for all school district budget voting and school board elections to be done through the use of absentee ballots alone. So all voting will be done by absentee ballots. And I know that some board members have fielded phone calls from constituents. I have certainly fielded some phone calls and inquiries from even staff members and voters. If I would direct everyone to the district website where the corrected budget newsletter is, a copy of the budget postcard, as well as the budget book. Karen would like to just talk about the requirements related to absentee ballots, because many of our voters, I don't know about many, but all of our voting materials and the rosters for qualified voters were generated for city BOCES by the County Board of Elections. The County Board of Elections submitted those lists of qualified voters to city BOCES, who generated lists for the mailing of the ballot, as well as 2 required envelopes. 1 envelope that would hold the ballot, and that has an address of the school district. And then that sealed envelope with the affidavit signed would go to Karen Canalia ultimately, but the first mailing envelope goes to BOCES for sorting. Karen, can you talk about the requirements related to the information that's requested on the envelope as well as the affidavit?
I sure can. This is the envelope that everybody's going to receive in the mail. All absentee, all qualified voters will receive this envelope. There's 2 envelopes inside. One is the return envelope, postage paid, and the one inside is the actual absentee ballot holder. So you would take the absentee ballot, mark your vote. I'll show you this here. This is what the absentee ballot looks like. If you could please fill that out, fold it back up, put it in this envelope, which asks for your name, your address, your school district, and your election district. Election districts are number 1, which is Scriba and Valney. Number 2 is the east side of Syracuse. Number 3 is, east side of Oswego. Number 3 is the west side of Oswego. And number 4 is the town of Oswego, Minetto, and there is a few residents in Sterling that belong to the Oswego City School District. Please don't forget to sign the back of it. You will put this in the return envelope. It'll go back to a city BOCES because we use their mailing permit. And then we will pick it up from city BOCES and continue the process from there.
Thank you, Karen. I would also like to point out that we're going to post on the district website, if we haven't already, a legal alert that came from the New York State School Boards that addresses some of these commonly asked questions that all school districts across New York State have been asking relative to security, why we're asking for certain things to be done the way they are. So that might be helpful to some voters. The other thing that I want to point out is because the rosters of qualified voters are generated by the Board of Elections, we have received some feedback from voters that they in fact are getting ballots mailed to their house for a previous owner, for example. If that resident could send those ballots back to Karen, we could forward that information to the Board of Elections and be helpful in terms of updating their information. I know it happened to me personally as well. You might get a ballot that it was meant for someone that lived there previously and no longer even lives in our community. So we want to do our part if we can to help them to get those voting rosters up to speed.
Karen, do you want to address the ballot box?
Yes, if you decide you do not want to mail back your ballot, we do have a ballot box located outside of the Education Center from 8 to 4. We do bring it in after 4 o'clock, just the weather. We don't want the weather to ruin the box or anything. And I will check it every morning.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Dr. Guai, I have 3 questions at this moment. First one's Gary Thompson, 27 Hart Street. What is the tax impact on homeowners this year? And is there an increase or a decrease, and how much?
Yes, I'd be happy to answer that. If you go back to the PowerPoint that has been posted to the district website, I talked about tonight what the impact was. On a $100,000 home, there's actually a reduction in the impact. So it would be $1,405.04 on a $100,000 home, which is a decrease from the current $1,084.02. So our tax rate is going down from $20.19 per thousand to $16.80 per thousand, which will give all of our taxpayers actually a reduction in their tax bill, although it's a 2.91% increase in the budget because the nuke plant, Exelon 9 Mile 1 and 2, went back on the tax rolls. That had a dramatic impact on our tax cap. So although we are still at or below our tax cap, we are in a good place with our with our community in terms of their school taxes.
Dean, before you segue from this question, can you also then clarify why we can't keep the tax rate at the same level that it was in order to avoid having to take out a reserve? Or
Yes. And I'll skim over it, and then Nancy can dig deeper if I don't do a good enough job. The tax cap calculation is quite complex, and there are certain variables of the tax cap that we don't control. And the greatest impact this year on our tax cap calculator was the moving of Exelon at 9 Mile 1 and 2 from a pilot agreement to the tax rolls. So it's like a balance. So that they came off their pilot, and so our revenue based on taxes became heavy, and our pilot became much lighter. If we were to, in fact, have an agreement with Exelon for this year, you would see the scale would shift. Our pilot number would increase dramatically, and our tax collection revenue would drop dramatically. Nancy, do you want to?
I think you said it perfectly.
Does that help, Heather?
I think so.
Okay.
Okay.
See how many I get, but I think it's all right.
Okay. Very complicated, and I don't pretend to be the expert on the tax cap calculator. That's why we have Nancy. I've learned an awful lot about that in the last 5 years, but even I still have questions day to day, and I'm always calling Nancy and asking her to explain it to me one more time, and so that I can talk about it articulately in my budget presentations and not say the wrong thing.
And Dean, that was the $18 million differential, correct? That showed up on there, the difference, that number being transferred from the pilot over there, that was the $18 million number, correct?
Yes.
All right, so, because I had someone ask me about that today, and in terms of how it presented, so I just want to make sure that was the number.
It's funny that even Nancy shared with me today that, was it the comptroller, Nancy, that called, or?
It was New York State Education.
The New York State Education Department called today and thought we had made a mistake on our revenue because so few districts have pilot agreements with nuclear power facilities. It's such a large chunk of money that they thought that we couldn't possibly have jumped in our tax revenue that amount of money in 1 year.
Mhm.
Okay, Karen, thank you.
Okay. Next one, Linda O'Donnell. She has several questions from 54 East Ave. How will you ensure the mail and the ballots are legitimate? We know people who have moved or died, etc., are still getting ballots. We received one at her home for people not living at that address.
That's a very good question. And it goes to something we talked about during the presentation. Her answer probably has already been answered for her if she's watching, but this is a unique way that we're voting on our budget and electing school board officers this year. It's unique for every district in New York State. But some of the things that you talked about previously, Karen, and that I talked about are those checks and balances. The reason that they're asked to fill out their name, address, school district, voting district, are so that when those envelopes are open, there can be a cross-reference to the rolls. Is that correct, Karen? So
Yes.
that we can assure that the people that are sending in those ballots are in fact on the rosters that were generated.
Mhm.
And we're asking our voters to help us if they do receive ballots for folks that have passed or are no longer living in their home, or if they have information, they should send those to Karen with some explanation, particularly since the envelope is already stamped for them.
Her next question is why the increase in the budget? We should be on an austerity budget, especially after this COVID-19 pandemic. There should be a freeze on spending of all sorts and decreases where able. With the budget we have and as shown.
I appreciate that feedback. And in many of the previous presentations, she would see and she can watch those online if she'd like. But we've talked, in depth about the fact that just because of natural operating cost expense increases, as well as collective bargaining, the increase on special education, increases associated with other contracts to operate our district. There are natural increases that you can't avoid. The district made some very tough decisions and actually reduced our budget this year in order to shrink that gap of $1.6 million. And we made some reductions that, quite frankly, none of us were comfortable with. So we are trying to be fiscally responsible and operate a district of our size with less. That, I think, has been a theme of my superintendency and any board that I've worked with. We've tried to be very responsible with our budgeting. And we tried to make $800,000 worth of reductions to our budget this year that were as far away from teaching and learning as we possibly can.
Next question. What is the cost per student in Oswego compared to Fulton and Syracuse? Our city is small and economically depressed, yet we have a super high budget. Why do we not possibly take some of the budget expenses for, I think it says sports, it's cut off.
Yeah, I can't offhand here in the WBUC studio tell you what our per pupil allocation is compared to or relative to other surrounding districts or Syracuse City. But I will tell you that what we've tried to do over the last 5 years is to have small incremental necessary increases in our budget in order to meet our responsibilities for the instruction of all students, as well as our responsibilities to our collective bargaining groups, and also to provide a variety of opportunities and experiences for our students outside of the class. And I think we've done a good job with that. And I'm sure this board will continue to do that.
The last question, Dr. Gui. Gary Thompson, 27 Hart Street. Great news on the decrease. This is a great relief. Will this be able to be maintained in future budgets?
I think we always try to balance our revenues with necessary expenditures. We try not to spend frivolously. We tried to hold the line and be responsible in collective bargaining with our units in order to be fair to our employees and also not be frivolous or irresponsible with money. I think we've demonstrated that significantly over the last several years. The sale of the Ed Center, tight negotiations with bargaining units, streamlining our operations, and I'm sure that the board will continue to do that.
That is all the questions I have. Is there any questions from the board? At this time, I am going to close the questions. And could I have a motion from adjournment for the public hearing?
I'll make the motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed. Next, we'll move to a regular session. Call to order, Kathleen Allen,
Here.
Brian Chetney,
Here.
Tom
Here.
Chapa,
Here.
Heather Del Conte,
Here.
Brandon Legault,
Here.
Linda Sereno,
Here.
Samuel Tripp.
Here.
Would the board at this time like to move to executive session?
I'll make a motion.
For the reason, can you hear me?
Yep, I
Yes.
can hear you, Heather.
Contract negotiations.
Could I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Excuse me, Heather, will there be a need for a vote after the executive session?
Yeah.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? You may move to executive session.
Thank you to Mr. Buckle for joining us, Tom. It was reassuring to have you here should there be challenging questions about some items.